Now, ever since the Wright Flyer of 1904, the very first airplane was built, we built over 8,000 to 9,000 different aircraft model types, 300 of which are airliners. Airliners like the A340, and so I think it's always interesting to see which one is considered the worst ever airplane. 11 of the worst aircraft still in service, and the number one you'll often see is the Aviation IL-62. Not only this website with a million ads on it that I don't care about says it, also this one with some TMU ads says the same thing. The Aviation IL-62. Why then is it the worst? And I would love to figure that out. I mean, right here, we have the interesting Aviation IL-62 for the Microsoft Flight Sim. We have had this airplane for quite a while now, for over a year for the Microsoft Flight Sim. Trouble is, it is about as reliable as it was in real life. I mean, look at it. The modeling is not bad whatsoever, and the cockpit doesn't actually look bad from the start. I mean, we have the classic Soviet architecture in a cockpit. First of all, the cockpit, they are very blue, turquoise kind of color. That is what we saw in lots of the even modern Soviet airplanes. And of course, this airplane is quite old. I mean, it was designed, what is this now? It was designed in shut up. It was designed in the early 60s, and it's made its first flight in 1963, meaning it's about as old as the 707 or the DC-8. Very old airplane. And you can definitely feel that in the cockpit. I mean, this was back in the day where eyes were needed a lot more for flying, which is why you have quite a good view out of the aircraft window, to be honest. Now look at this, the cockpit here. The problem is, it's not very functional. This whole airplane is unfunctional completely. None of the buttons you can press. This would be, I don't even know what this would be. It's all in Russian, obviously. I have no idea what any of this does or would do if it worked. We have sort of an INS display, like a Russian version of IN. That's crazy. But none of this really works at all. And I would love to be able to do a flight on the Aviation IL-62, a realistic flight. After all, it was a milestone. It was the first Soviet long-range airliner. This thing would get you across the Atlantic. No problem. Oh, a little bit of problem. For example, the plane was very much known for having engine issues all the time. Well, actually, it still has that. Oh my god, that's a complete oh, that's not good. That can't be good either. Oh, what the hell went wrong there? Is someone selling a full-size Aviation IL-62 engine? Hope that doesn't blow up. No, the thing about this plane is definitely that it has its own accidents and incident involving the Aviation IL-62 category on Wikipedia, which is always a bit problematic, especially because all of these incidents are fatal. This one, Aeroflot flight from Paris to Moscow. Fatal. Flight from Russia all the way to Cuba. Fatal. Flight from Moscow to Africa, Senegal. Fatal. Air Area flight in Iran. Very fatal as well. That was only recently, 2009, comparably. Air Koryo in 1983. Air Koryo in West Africa. Fatal. A Czech airline in the 1975, Damascus. Fatal. Cubana Air. Fatal. East German Interflug Air Flight, 1989. Fatal. Another one, 1972. Fatal, completely fatal. LOT Airlines flight from Warsaw to New York. Fatal. 1987, Warsaw to New York again. Fatal. See, while all these planes from the 60s and 70s have sort of a list of accidents like this, the Aviation IL-62 was built only 292 times, not very much. And yes, there were 5 prototypes as well, one of which crashed before the plane was even publicly flying. So that's that. Fatal. Yeah, but once again, all first-gen airliners were kind of unsafe, so, I don't really want to hate too much. I just don't like it all. This looks like a bone. Anyway, talking about irreliability, this Microsoft Flight Sim add-on doesn't really work. I can't get the engines to work. They don't work at all. We can only see sort of a semi-good model of the plane. I kind of wonder what this little wheel does right there. If this thing pops up one more time, I'm gonna quit YouTube. It's all because of this weird add-on, which is completely broken. It's a shame we don't have a good one for the Microsoft Flight Sim. In fact, any Soviet airliners for the Microsoft Flight Sim. Anyway, luckily though, for the X-Plane Flight Simulator, I found this one. A good model of the Aviation IL-62 by some Russian guy named Interstellar 0001. And I trust him on GitHub. Anyway, this is what the plane looks like. It has some issues. That's fine. And as you can see, it has the very interesting looking engines that we know of the Aviation IL-62. No other plane has it like this, where engines are mounted up to the tail next to each other. What a quirky design. Talking about quirky, we can also see the quirkiness here in the tail landing gear. More on that later. Here's what the cockpit looked like. We have got the literal bone as yoke. No, this is not necessarily a good cockpit either, to be honest. Looks like this. It's part English, it's part Russian, and it works. Well, the engines are turned on. Something we also have is, of course, the cabin, which is kind of nice. And, well, what passengers reported about the cabin, about this plane, is that it was very cramped. It was not a comfortable cabin at all, apparently. A loud airplane, and we can definitely hear that, too. This plane would probably set modern-day YouTubers who make videos about airlines into a state of shock, obviously. Very different way of flying. Let's go full power on these 4 interesting engines that are mounted on the tail, and we get the landing gear to spin. Well, most of it. This landing gear is not designed to spin. In fact, it's actually just built in as a tail protection. See, this is interesting because it's the same thing that the Concorde famously had, the tail bumper. Why did Concorde have this feature? Well, the design of the very long tail would make it quite prone to tail striking, and so they would add just this landing gear that would come out whenever the landing gear is out that could be hit once you do the tail strike, which apparently happens all the time. I don't really see this problem here. This tail doesn't seem necessary. It might seem a bit long. Let's maybe try to do tail strike, actually. So go full power in this airplane. Interestingly, it needs a lot of runway, so performance is not necessarily a lot. I mean, whereas the 707 had no trouble doing barrel rolls, this thing I think would struggle a little bit. So here we go. We've taken off without a tail strike, and interestingly, this plane has some sort of tilted landing gear a little bit. Let's go and put the landing gear up. Now, this animation isn't very much done yet. The landing gear door doesn't actually open. And well, the thing is, very interestingly, the tail landing gear does not actually retract into the body of the airplane. It stays out all the time, which would probably be so inefficient just aerodynamically to have this landing gear out all the time. Isn't that kind of crazy to think about? I feel like there would be a better way of, protecting the plane against tail strikes. Either way, we have taken off in the Aviation IL-62. And some of the instruments work. The artificial horizon definitely doesn't. Nor does this screen, nor does the compass. We have an altimeter, which is... I don't even know what it's showing. Like, that is like 0 feet. 100 feet? Don't know. No, this airplane doesn't tell us a lot about what's going on, but we can see good to the outside, Let's go ahead and pull off a landing right here in this airplane. What I think is interesting is that the wing of this plane is extremely swept, as you can see. It's quite a long pencil of a plane, but despite this speedy design, this plane was relatively slow, especially compared to the Vickers VC-10. The VC-10 that looked exactly like the Aviation IL-62. Yeah, well, the thing is, the IL-62 is kind of known as a fake VC-10, so you can compare it to it, but it was much slower than a VC-10. Apparently as well, maintaining this airplane sucked. It just wasn't good, or as good as the Vickers VC-10 after all. Damn, I really forgot that this thing is it's just genuinely... It's insane. Same airplane. That's so funny. Either way, I'm controlling this airplane, and I don't really find it hard to do so, but the problem is that this airplane had apparently manual flight controls, so no power assist to move the flight control surfaces, which is crazy. This thing is practically a Cessna 172, but big, and you can fly it to New York. If some ice gets in a hinge, you just use your muscle that will break it loose. So apparently this plane was also a flying gym for pilots. That's the crazy thing about it. No power flight. What? All right, my friends of hydraulics. So this plane would feel like flying a plane in an emergency situation when the hydraulics fail off. Great. All right, let's see if we can land this Russian Aviation IL-62. Here's the runway. Let's do a nice landing. All right, let's see if we can pull off a butter landing. After all, once again, the landing gear is tilted, which is nice. Yes, and as you can see, we have landed somehow, and we can see that, interestingly, only 2 of the 4 engines have thrust reversers on them. Interesting, bucket thrust reversers. We can see the other 2 engines don't have buckets, but very effective. We have very effective spoilers and flaps, and this is kind of cool to see as an animation. Hey, at least the buckets didn't explode that way when we put them on. So everybody, the problem is, once again, we don't really have a flight sim model that lets us see why this plane would be the worst. So far, it seems like your usual 1960s Soviet airliner. Honestly, all planes from the 60s make me appreciate that we have modern jet airliners nowadays, with the exception of the Concorde. To be honest, maybe this plane was a little bit too revolutionary to be counted as the worst ever airliner indeed, but for now, we just have to, whoa, that was close. For now, we just have to kind of wait until there's actually a good model. Why don't they make some Soviet airliners for the Microsoft Flight Sim? So everybody, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow as always. Good night. And a special thanks goes out to my members, my supporters, Guns Killer, R27, James Duram, that dude, Anime Gods of Gaming, Derek, Insider Plane, Nishijitsu Fanner, Professional Jamal, Ryland Williams, and New the York. You've got beautiful names.